Did the engineer give you any idea when they're going to do the Noble Road?
He didn't give me an exact time frame for next year. No, originally the plan was for this fall, but I know they did get the soil samples out there this year, but as far as the actual construction starting, I believe it's not going to be till summertime, but whether or not that's a for sure time.
Yeah.
Probably all depends on how the springtime projects go.
How often do you do this? As needed, depending on the,
Yeah, according to the bylaws, it's as request, it can be requested as long as there's 1.25 million in our cash balance.
requested by who?
Okay, we're in section. You can explain that in a minute.
Okay, so
Not right now, in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the Board of County Commissioners, Richland County. I am here, Darrell Banks, Tony Vero, and Cliff Mears, fellow commissioners, Stacy Craw, clerk. Pat Dropsy, our auditor, is with us. Our new administrator, Mr. Keller, is with us, and Eddie Hale from Richland Solid Waste. So, Eddie, you wanted to talk to us about the Noble Road project.
Yeah, so in 2020, November of 2020, the Richland County engineer Adam Gove came to the board meeting, requested $150,000 for maintenance on the Noble Road project, which bylaws for Richland County Solid Waste. That money can be approved by the board of directors for the solid waste as long as we have a 1.25 million cash balance on hand. And at the time, I believe we had about 1.7 on hand at the time. The board of directors did approve the $150,000 payout for the year of 2021. However, the work on the Noble Road project has not started. We got a request from Adam Gove after we had approved 2022's budget. We got a request by the engineer to carry that $150,000 over into 2022 because the project won't start till 2022 now. So I'm here just to get the okay from the commissioners since we already had our budget approved for 2022, just to roll that $150,000 over onto 2022's budget.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, some way, somehow, because solid waste and a route for refuge goes along Noble Road, you guys have an ability to contribute money for the paving of Noble Road. Am I saying this correctly?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so then what is it? What document? Is it your bylaws? Is it it wouldn't be the Ohio Revised Code.
It's actually in our 5-year plan. That as long as the funds are available, that money can be requested for improvement on the Noble Road.
Okay. So this isn't necessarily anything in your bylaws, or you guys had a 5-year plan adopted by the board in which helping pave Noble Road is part of that plan.
Yes.
Assuming you have an unencumbered balance of 0.2 or whatever the dollars may be.
Correct.
Saying that right, Terry?
You are saying it very correct. And Eddie asked me about it. I asked Pat what we should do. And my understanding is you thought Eddie ought to just inform the board that that's what they're holding $150,000 back. Or do we need?
Unless it needs to be reappropriated. That's the only other thing. But if you guys have already approved it, the engineer didn't get to it this year.
What do you mean by approved it, Pat?
But it was part of their budget for 2021. And they didn't get to spend it. And like you guys already approved the spending.
We haven't approved 2022 yet.
Right. So I think in essence, he's just he's just coming to inform you that the project was delayed from 21 to 22. And then he's probably never had to deal with it this way before, so.
So all you're gonna do is we need to just note it for your 2022 budget.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I don't even think we need to take formal action.
No, I don't think so either, but thought it was a good idea. Everybody knows what's going on. And since Eddie's here, I think our budget has went up from our year carryover, which you need a lot of that, I understand. But was it $1.1 million when you got here?
Yes, and
Now I don't know what it is now, but
yeah, we'll have, without paying that out this year, we'll carry over just for this year alone of about 700,000 for 2021.
So you're saying that'll add on to the one point, I'd have to go in.
Yeah, our cash balance right now is $2,550,000.
And everyone has money but the commissioners.
well,
It'll be at 3.2.
No, that's,
That's total.
yeah.
Be around 1.9.
Coming into the year, into 2021, we had a net carryover, we had a cash balance of 1,939,000. We're at 2,550,000 right now. And we're probably looking at 2.7 by the time we roll into 2022.
man has done a phenomenal
Done a good
job
job.
out there. And he's had good people working with him to get it done, but he's done a great job. Well, Eddie, we thank you for coming down and appreciate it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, gentlemen.
See,
I forgot to,
Wait a minute.
Carl's got a question.
Yeah, thank you. Eddie, I'm just wondering, one of the things the city of Mansfield has talked about, and I know it's been discussed, I think, at solid waste district meetings, is an environmental officer to help enforce illegal dumping in the city and in the county, and that would have to go through the sheriff's department. And I understand it's not in the budget for next year, and I'm just curious, with the kind of carryovers you're experiencing, 2.7 million by the time you roll into 2022, is there going to be, what's the thought process about that environmental enforcement officer?
It's something that we continually look at. I plan on visiting all 18 townships, trying to get some input from them, trying to see what their thoughts are. But it's something that we definitely still have on the back burner. We just need to do more research into it. And my goal here in the start of 2022 is to start visiting the townships, attending the township meetings and bringing the subject up to the townships.
So would this officer focus on a specific travel route or go all around the county?
It would be all around the county.
So that would be the reason why you'd speak to all the townships. I was gonna say if it's one route or so, that makes sense then.
And the Noble Road itself, how long is that road? And do you know, Eddie, what the total cost of the repaving is and what percentage your 150,000 represents?
Well, when I talked to the engineer about it, and this could have changed because this was prices reflecting back in 2021, the total cost for that section from 13 to the entrance of the Noble Road landfill was an estimated cost of $855,000.
How long is that stretch of road?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay.
Probably a quarter mile or so, maybe more.
Miles, $800,000.
They're going to do a lot more than pave it.
Yeah, it's going to be concrete.
Okay.
Oh, so this is going to be a concrete surface?
My understanding, that's the way I took it. For exact specifics, I'd have to lean back on Adam for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So let me introduce the media. We have Carl from the news, or from the Resource, and Lawrence from the News Journal. And Al, I guess we didn't make one thing clear. I'll take the hit on that. But we talked about Josh Hicks the other day. His experience was not with Belleville, but was with the Clear Fork School District. And just to let you know, I read, so you know I read your articles.
Well, we wouldn't have promoted him, Al, had he just spent time in Belleville. So
Okay.
And obviously. Okay, let's move on now to, I guess,
That's here.
10 o'clock. So we have an executive session at 10, so let's do some other
Yeah.
until we get there. So can we certify November the 18th?
so moved.
I have a very small correction. The very first paragraph. Poll worker, POLE, should be. I have a different image of a poll worker.
What image is that?
But
What image are you talking
I
about?
focus on those things just selectively,
How do you know about that?
but it's, other than that, I second.
I totally missed that.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Mr. Mears,
Yes.
Okay, can we approve the requisitions?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Can we approve the transfers and appropriation?
We had more explanation on the New Hope transfers. It looks pretty complicated and I left a voicemail or
We do
two.
this at the end of the year, Cliff. They have a very extensive and complicated budget. So what this generally is a balance correction in funds. They have so many line items that provide so many services. They may need a little money here and they have so many employees. So this is sort of a reconciliation of their line items to make sure they have enough money in some. And that's the process with that.
So the question I have is, a week ago today, we approved transfers from various departments into insurance. And today we're transferring from insurance.
So the answer to that is, and throughout the year, you have employees that come and go, particularly at New Hope, who has a lot of employees, where they may have a family plan or a single plan. So you do your best at the beginning of the year to guesstimate what those costs are. But if you lose an employee who, say, doesn't even have insurance, and then you gain an employee who has a family plan, you're obviously going to need to put money into health insurance. New Hope has a lot of employees because they provide very extensive services to individuals in need. So that's the answer.
Thank you for the explanation.
Yep.
Second. Makes sense.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
We have the Richland County Emergency Operation Plan. And find the introduction and base plan B.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow, Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
And next business is the utility permit application project from Everstream Solutions on South Illinois Avenue. And the engineer has approved it. So can we get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
And then we have another one, utility permit application from Columbia Gas of Ohio, Marion Avenue, and this would run from between 1340 Marion Avenue or Marion Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Then we have a cooperative agreement Village of Lexington, and this has to do with the Public Works Commission helping pay for Orchard Park Road and other road improvements.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
I guess we're down to ARPA funds.
no. Have a
We got some COVID.
Yep.
Let's authorize the COVID-19 expense reimbursement for $159.96. So they bought some air purifiers,
Or filters for their air purifiers.
air filters, more purifiers.
Second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Keller, will you have before us matter of self-certifying $50,000 micro purchases threshold and then 250,000 to do with American Rescue Plan? Want to explain those to us, please?
Yes, Commissioner. Today the commissioners are taking a step that's a prerequisite to American Rescue Plan Act purchasing. What you will see in front of you, should all have hopefully, is a Richland County Board of Commissioners American Rescue Plan Act written procurement policies and procedures. Not only are these procedures going to be helpful in guiding purchases that the commissioners make through ARPA, but it also happens to be a document that's required to be in place by federal law. To CFR 200.31H requires the commissioners to have adopted such a written policy for their federal purchasing. So that's what this is. And it's ready for the commissioners to adopt today. Prior to adopting this policy, you'll also see two resolutions. I'm going to start with the resolution that's captioned in the matter of establishing a simplified acquisition threshold, et cetera. And the simplified acquisition threshold is simply a fancy federal term for when you need to formally bid a purchase. And under federal law, the default is $250,000, although non-federal jurisdictions such as Richland County still have to memorialize what their threshold is going to be. In this case, we believe $250,000 is an appropriate federal threshold. Now, as you know, state law bidding threshold is $50,000. So, and we still have to, abide by that, of course. But so this takes care of that federal requirement that you establish a simplified acquisition threshold. Also, separately, you have this resolution in the matter of certifying a $50,000 micro purchase threshold. Also, federal law allows for the commissioners to establish a micro purchase threshold. Well, what does that mean? Anything over the micro purchase threshold triggers federal procurement requirements. It's not as formal as if it's over $250,000. It's more of an informal procurement process.
Move, because again, anything over 50, we have to bid.
Anything over 50, you have to bid under state law. Now, that said, the federal default for a micro purchase threshold is $10,000, but by resolution, the commissioners can raise it to $50,000. That's what you're doing today. And it makes sense. Anytime you can align federal requirements with state law requirements, you want to take advantage of that, because that's going to allow consistency in county operations. In other words, the way the county would normally do procurement, they can continue doing it that way. Obviously, for purposes of our federal purchases, there's still many additional requirements, but this gets us as in line as we can with our present practices for procurement. So that's those two resolutions. Those should be adopted prior to adopting the procurement policies and procedures, because the information contained in these resolutions is in your policies and procedures. had the pleasure of working with Auditor Pat Dropsy on
It's really a pleasure.
these materials. And so, great minds think alike. So
Now they're calling themselves great minds too. Geez, only been on a job for a couple weeks and they're already calling themselves great minds over here.
But also, one of the things that Andrew didn't bring up is, one of the requirements is that as a public entity, you are a low risk auditee, which we are. And I double checked yesterday with the auditors, state auditor's office, to ensure that we still were. If we weren't, Andrew wouldn't be able to come to you today pertaining to this. So that's just something else that we're allowed to do with the ARPA money based on the fact that we're a low risk auditee.
Why are we low risk?
Because the great minds,
because we have a good
Because we
auditor.
have great No, because we,
Because of our credit rating?
no, it has to do with the audits.
Audit.
Past audited, the
Okay.
past audits. And as long as you don't have any issues with your internal control in regards to federal funds, and as long as you don't have any issues with any material differences in your reporting of the federal funds and the expenditures, and you are a low risk auditee. And basically, that just means they don't have to look at it at as high of a percentage of transactions as they would if you were high risk.
It's another benefit of having obviously an experienced auditor in Pat Dropsy, because without our designation as a low risk auditee, again, we wouldn't be establishing a simplified acquisition threshold at $250,000. That's a finding that you have to make prior to establishing that threshold. So that's in large part thanks to the auditor.
Oh, don't give them too much credit.
Actually, it's Andy.
So Andrew, if I'm hearing you correctly, we have to individually pass these resolutions, right?
Correct.
And then after we do that, then we pass the policy, which include two exhibits, which is the standard methods of procurement and the methods of, I can't even read my own writing here. Mandated affirmations.
That's absolutely right. And those, of course, are included within the policy.
Just letting the media know that there are exhibits attached to the policy,
Yes,
or the standard methods of procurement and the mandated affirmations.
that's right.
so I would entertain a motion for self-certifying a $50,000 micro purchase threshold for the use of the American Rescue Plan funds in accordance with 2 CFR 200.320.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
I would also entertain a motion of establishing a simplified acquisition threshold, $250,000 for the use of American Rescue Plan funds in accordance with 200.320.
So moved.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Then we come to the American Rescue Act of 2021, written procurement policies and procedures for ARPA specific expenditures.
So moved.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Mears,
Okay, does the news media want to ask Mr. Keller or Mr. Dropsy any questions? Yes, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, I'm still stuck on procurement and policies and procedures and a lot of other fancy words. Is there anything that you guys just voted on that actually spends money, or does this just set the stage for how you can spend money?
The latter, where this action today didn't authorize any specific expenditures. It simply creates the framework that the commissioners will use in making those expenditures through ARPA.
And if I understand it right, if it's anything over $50,000 has to be bid, anything under 50 they can do without bid.
That is correct. That is generally correct. You know, certain things are exempt from competitive bidding even once you exceed the threshold, but that's the exception, not the rule.
Very good. That's kind of what I needed to know. Thanks, guys.
Not unmuting.
Okay. It's 9:54 and we're just going to recess till 10 o'clock.
And this is for Tony.
It is 10:02. We are back in session. And we have been joined by Rachel Troyer and Captain Blunk. And we're going to talk about the medical contract for the jail
In executive.
in executive session, if we can get a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Who was it the other day said in here that
I'll be done just. a second.
My sister got, oh wait, we're on microphones all.
Wanted to say hi.
Look at this guy.
Got a lot going on. I might come back.
Last day today.
go ahead and see if he's got any
Come
warrant.
on in.
Last day. Last day.
I was gonna say, I'll be done in just a second.
I got
Who?
Americans for Prosperity.
That's code for lobbyists like Luke, right? That's code for more money.
He got what? Voted the lobbyist, the most popular lobbyist or something.
Just ask him, he'll tell you
Yes, he will. Posted that picture and,
a few times, yeah.
Ready?
Okay.
We're ready. It's 10:22. We are back in session. And just reporting out that Rachel and Captain Blanc will continue the negotiations on the medical part of the jail.
Correct. Thank you very much.
Has the, Rachel,
Yes.
have you received actual bids? The last time, I guess this kind of came up, there hadn't been any bids received. Have you actually gotten some now?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Any other questions? I've opened it up.
Hey,
we're gonna be kicking you out again for a couple minutes, Tim.
Hmm?
For a couple minutes.
Okay.
okay, can we get a motion to go into executive session having to do with sheriff's department's compensation?
I'll move.
Second,
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero,
Yes.
Commissioner Mears.
that's,
I
Do you
forgot.
expect any actions after this executive session?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just say before you go that we've been joined by the sheriff, Captain Sweat and Captain Zahner. And Tim Ross
Correct.
and Kelly. Kelly and,
Captain Blunt staying.
and
Oh, boy.
oh, yeah.
You figured
Lucky us.
everybody.
Stacy and Mr. Ross
Yeah, come on in.
You can go back in. My recording quit, so I have the tape going and everything else.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, it's 10:44. We came out of executive session. We're now back into regular session. And we will continue to, Sheriff's Department will continue to work on the situation. Took no action. And is any other, I guess,
Well, we do want to wish Tim Ross a fairly well.
into the lobbying world.
When will we meet your replacement?
I will connect you when that is known. Boss is still working through that. I'll make sure that you know who to call.
So if we have a pressing issue right now in Congressman Gibbs' office, who do we call?
Right now, it's still me until the first Monday or until next Friday.
Okay.
You got me until that, but
It has been an absolute pleasure working with you. And I know we're still going to work with you, obviously in a little different capacity. So he's not going away anywhere.
no, you'll still see me around here. Maybe a little less, but
It's been a pleasure.
pleasure's mine. Thank you. And it's great working with you all. I wanted to come by and say that and enjoyed working with you in your various capacities over the years. Tony makes it hard sometimes, but it's
You're not telling us anything we don't already know.
You even talked to my wife?
wow. Can't wait to see how this is reflected in the minutes.
Oh, that's all right. Remember the time when we were talking about social distancing and the newspaper said my wife's been social distancing since the first date? I was knocking on doors in the snow and said, honey, you're going to read something in the paper here.
Yeah, that's the problem.
But she expects it. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're on the record, so say your name and
David Yetzer on 4148 Lacer Road, Shelby, Ohio, which is very near the Shelby Country Club. And up behind me is the Omni Station, which is the broadcast beacon for the aircraft. I was under the impression that that was one of the highest points in the county, possibly in the state. Blackport, of course, water runs downhill, goes around that area. It goes north through Shelby and then east and then south into Mifflin. But the object I'm bringing up is that I'm out there where I have no problem with flooding. I'm being assessed. I was told a long time ago, and I believe it, you should never criticize a farmer with your mouth full. They do a tremendous job. They're subject to pestilence and to high fertilizer cost, high equipment cost, high land cost. Their product, when they bring it in, not good crop. If they do get a good crop, a lot of times in the area, the price will go down because there's an abundance. So I'm very glad to have the farmers out there. But I was in most of what I have, and I'm not prepared because I really didn't figure on being here today. I was going to make an appointment to come in. The income from the assessment was supposed to be round figures, assessment or estimates, and all that kind of stuff, which is political double talk for we don't know. And
why do you say that?
because you don't, how much is it going to bring in?
Well, that's it. The answer to that question is the engineer has to provide a cost estimate of the initial
Have
cleanup.
you done that?
That's not due in May.
All right, but
Hold on, I want to respond.
Okay.
I don't agree with political double talk. This is actually the exact opposite. By law, the engineer has to provide an exact cost of what the initial cleanup would be. So that's not any double talk.
well, a lot of this information that flows to the people flows through the newspaper.
We've already held one public hearing and we're going to.
There, I spoke to you on that,
Right. So why do you say it goes through the newspaper? You were literally at the public hearing.
right? And that's when they were saying in the newspaper and at that meeting, because the guy that took the information does a recording. So his information is pretty accurate as far as what was said. Estimated. The word estimated is,
But it won't be estimated come May. It'll be actual.
Okay, $400,000 was yes. That's
It
what
might
we,
have been a little higher, but what we tried to do for the benefit of that hearing is provide the best information we had at this time.
Okay.
By law, you cannot provide an estimate. Come May, you have to have an actual cost.
it was my opinion of that meeting that it was a sales meeting.
Okay,
You were trying to sell the product.
I disagree with that completely.
Okay, well, we can agree to disagree.
okay.
Okay, in the same article that I read in the paper then later on was that there would, and this information comes pretty fast, and I'm 84 years old. My memory used to be, but I do have a lot of history. He said that there was about $300,000 of benefit. And then it went on to say mostly to the farmers. That's why I brought up the farmers. Farmers are probably the most subsidized industry in the country. $300,000, they didn't say if that was initial.
That's not true. And I'll tell you why. If the benefit doesn't if the cost outweighs the benefit, we can't approve the project. Period. So what you're saying right now is absolutely not true.
Well, that was what was in the paper. I've got the paper. I kept the papers. I don't have with
me.
Pardon?
I don't recall reading that. I don't believe that to be the case. I will stand corrected if that is the
Well,
case. I could tell you if the cost comes in at 400 and the benefits at 300, the project doesn't happen
Well,
by law.
it was my impression that the 300 was an ongoing benefit.
That's correct.
I believe it was
So,
400.
in 10 years,
Then
in 10 years, we're at $3 million.
then the benefit would outweigh. Correct.
All right. What benefit is that to me?
It's a
What is the monetary benefit of that to me?
you understand it's not just individually you, right? It's all the parcels within the watershed. We can't make the decision based on the benefit to you. You might get less of a benefit than the guy down the road. The guy down the road may also have more land that drains into the watershed in which he or she would pay more for the assessment. This is the same thing we went over at the hearing.
They also talked at the hearing that there would be a continuing maintenance, $40,000 per year? If
If it's 400, it's 10%.
okay, well,
And if there's no maintenance, not a single thing is assessed to the landowner.
As needed.
It's as needed.
as needed. Okay. 170 some $1,000 was just in the paper that you have awarded to the engineering department to do a walkthrough survey as opposed to
I thought he estimated that at 30,000. I thought he was looking at the total engineering. He estimated the cost for the walkthrough with people to do it because by law it says you have to do that was around 30,000.
that's not what was in the paper.
Well, can you send me what was in the paper? Because my understanding was
Just within the last few days.
I thought the cost. Yes, Al.
And unless they misprinted it, I wrote 20 to 30,000.
That's what I remember.
Okay, well, I kept these papers.
Okay.
But like I say, I'm not prepared, or I would have had them with me. In that cannot accumulate over 2 years of income into the maintenance fund. It has a cap on it.
Not understanding what you're asking.
Does the maintenance fund have a
The maintenance fund is not used.
If it's not used, there is a cap. If you,
Yeah, so this all goes into Adam's initial estimate. So whatever is the engineering costs, et cetera, the monies that's set aside, okay?
All right.
Goes into his initial cleanup costs. Then after that, the fund cannot have more than 10% of what the initial cleanup is. So let's use ballpark figures. If it's 500,000, then the fund can only have 10% of that
50,000.
moving forward. Yes.
And if the engineer
Spread over
doesn't,
roughly 10,000 parcels.
if the
So how many
engineer,
acres do you have?
9.
So we're looking at
how many parcels?
It's actually in 3 separate deeds, but it's all together.
It's on one parcel then.
Yeah, it's 9
So we're
acres.
looking at what we were looking at. It was 20. A rough estimate was about $20 per. What? How many? What did we say?
Depends on the size of the.
Right. We did an average. You said 9 acres. We said about $20. So we're looking at
$18.
yeah, $18 per parcel. Obviously, you'd be a little more because he has acreage, and then it would only be at $1.80. It would be $1 a half. So let's say the average, just for just for, let's say, so the average was a half acre. You said you have 9 acres, so that's 18 times 18. You're looking at an initial assessment of roughly $324. Then after that, you're looking at, if there's any assessment done, about $32 in a given year.
I was under the
16.
impression of what happened at the meeting and so forth, that the assessment was going to be approximately $6 per acre with an additional $2 added to that, which would be less than $10 an acre.
Well, it has to be the
Acres as
go
opposed
through
to parcels.
go through has to be $10 a minimum. And then if you do an assessment, it has to be at least $2.
So I've got a couple lots out in the cemetery. Do I get assessed for them too? That's being
So
facetious.
just so we're
Don't answer
clear-
that.
Just so we're clear, and I'm not trying to minimize it, we're looking at $320 to you initially, give or take.
And I think it'd probably be less.
And I'm doing on the high side. And then $32, $16 a half.
Okay.
Just, are we in agreement with that? Give or take?
Because there again, you're saying it's estimated. So, but yeah, I have I had it, I was going to bring it with me. The canceled check that I had that I sent to the previous farmer organization and went to Kilgore and Herring for $100 for helping clean up. And that was a donation. If this were the same as what I was told at $10 an acre, I would have $90 as assessment on this. But like I say, there's numbers here that we just don't have the
numbers in May.
The thing about it is that once those numbers come in, you're going to make a decision and it's going to be made in a relatively short period of time. There's not going to be that much public input at that point.
I guess we've already held one public hearing. This has been going on now for over a year to say this would be done in a shorter matter of time. And keep in mind, it was the city of Shelby elected the mayor of Shelby, who represents 9,000 people, and 63 other landowners.
How many else signed the petition?
63 individual private citizens and Mayor Shag on behalf of the
In the city?
No, sir. Actually, the most were outside the city,
Okay. Which puts them out in the county or the township.
puts them within the watershed.
They talked about the watershed. They said my benefit is that it's taking water off my property. I did not put that water on my property. The mayor, being a minister, knows what that God determined that separating the water from the land, the water's going to run downhill. You have to know that to be a plumber. That's a primary thing. Why is my water? It's not my water.
When water rains on your driveway or home on your land, where does it go?
A lot of it goes into the ground.
Okay, but where does it ultimately?
I am in the back more or less because I've got a culvert underneath the driveway and sometimes I back up as much as 5 feet of water behind that, which drains out fairly quickly.
So where do you think that goes?
Well, it probably goes into the Black Fork, but the Black Fork was there long time ago.
But the runoff from your property is contributing to that.
Right.
That's the whole point. If you're contributing to the problem and the problem has to be corrected,
Well, but I don't get any benefit, monetary benefit. The farmer's getting a monetary benefit. They're taking the fruits of my labor. And this happened back in the early 1800s. We fought a civil war over it. It's paramount to slavery. You're taking my money without my vote, without my input, except for here, and giving it to the farmer because he's going to benefit from it. That's not right. That's morally, that is not right.
Well,
If the farmer is benefiting, let the farmer provide the ongoing maintenance.
I just,
I won't object to the initial part for the cleanup, but the maintenance I do object to.
you might pay $9 at most. And I'm not trying to minimize $9.
Well, there's straws that break the camel's back.
So those $9, $4.50 a half is where you draw the line.
Well,
Just so I'm clear, and I'm not trying to minimize $9.
understand
Just
too.
Draw the camel's back. So if you're, after we do the initial cleanup, let's say you pay $90 the first assessment. Okay. And so in a year in which there's no work done, you don't get assessed anything.
Okay, I'll get back to that one. The matter of the assessment is what I object to. If you would put it out for a vote, would it pass?
I
The
didn't,
counties.
the assessment first of all, it hasn't been passed yet. We have passed that we are going to investigate it.
Right, I understand.
It cost.
That's why I'm trying to get you to understand.
We will meet again when we know what it's going to cost. And at that time, the decision will be made. Now, there's one thing that I totally agree with you on. The most subsidized industry in America is the American farmer. And I'm not saying that's wrong, right, or indifferent.
I'm not either.
I just wanted to find something I could agree with you since you're here, and that's what I found.
Well, the agricultural export is one of the biggest exports we have in this country, as opposed to all those ships sitting out there in Los Angeles that are coming in. Those are all jobs on those boats. Stuff that we're buying from China and the Far East and so forth. That's American money going out and using to subsidize some of the stuff that China does. Two other things. In northern Richland County, the engineer has a number of bridges. Now, in this inspection and maintenance, do those bridges come under the ditch program?
No, this would be for cleanup of the log jam or debris or obstructions.
Is the assessment off budget?
I don't know because we haven't seen the budget.
Well, what I'm referring to is that you commissioners have a budget where you allocate money to the various departments. If it's $40,000 or $50,000 a year to the county engineer, that's a pittance to his normal budget.
But we can't by law do that. We explained that at the meeting you attended.
But you don't include the assessment, and you don't include the income for health department or for all the rest of these things that have their own levies.
We can't.
Right, I understand that. But you have a budget
Okay.
that you have what's the word I'm trying to think of? When you have authority over that budget to do the things that you need to do with those people that don't have a levy. Okay, so the budget you give for the county engineer is out there, and he's got $40,000 hanging out here that he can use for the ditch maintenance.
I honestly don't understand what you're saying.
Okay,
And I'm not trying to play dumb here. I just do not understand a word that you are saying. I don't understand the point you're trying to make, and I'm not trying.
what I'm trying to make is that the maintenance department for that budget on an ongoing basis will never get to the point of where it is topped out. It will always be used.
No, it won't.
Who has the
That's not true.
who has the oversight?
The engineer, if the project is approved, okay, will go through and take a look at the debris or obstructions. If he determines that there is no maintenance to be done in any given year, not a single landowner.
If he determines,
That's right.
he determines.
He also determines when roads are paved at a much higher
Right.
cost every year. The law affords a trained, certified engineer to look at a project within his scope of expertise and says, this road needs paved, this bridge needs done.
Nobody can say to the engineer, this maintenance cost that
Can you go to say to the engineer that road shouldn't be paved?
No,
It's the same concept.
the road is under normal budget. This is off budget.
It's not off budget. If the project is approved at X amount of dollars, that goes into a separate fund known as a.
Right, off budget.
It's not off budget. It becomes a part of public finance. You keep saying
Right.
off budget.
I agree.
There's no off budget.
Agree.
Okay. Then after the initial cleanup, whatever you want to call that semantically, then law says you can have no more than 10% of that initial cleanup in the fund. That is very on budget.
Trees, grass, and so forth grow every year.
Do you know counties all over this state have ditch petitions? The Crawford County engineer said, how many do they have? 19, 20, 21. Delaware has them all over the place. This is not an uncommon thing. And a lot of people that have them in these counties really like them because it keeps the riverways clean. It helps water quality. And I'm not saying that we're going to approve the project. What I'm saying is this isn't some sort of revolutionary concept in Ohio,
I
and
lived
across the country.
in Shelby. I grew up on North Gamble Street. My dad built a house out there. When we had severe rains, we had water in the basement. Sanitary sewer backup. I got married in 1959. I lived on Vernon Road and the sewer would back up. And the residents would complain and the city came out with a big trailer mounted, I think it was a Gorman Rupp pump, 3-4 inch suction line on it with a 90-degree out the top. They dropped it in the sewer and they pumped the sanitary sewage out in the street. There was actually toilet paper in the street. I had pictures of it. I went down to city council, raised hell a couple of times. And they said, well, we've got a problem because we can't do the sewer underneath the railroad track because railroads have a whole different set of rules as to what you can cross their property with. I sat there talking about politics. Herb Poland was the director of law. And they were doing an assessment of property and approving the plot for where the nursing home is at north of the road that goes across between 61 and 39. And it has an intersection in it as it comes around that nursing home. And they were talking about it and they spread out the prints for the engineer. And he said, this is where it's at and the assessment and so forth. And the council passed it. In the meantime, Herb Poland is rocked back on his chair on two legs like this. And I'm sitting right behind him. And I kind of leaned forward and I said, who pays for the intersection? There's a little slight pause and he got up and he started to look through the ordinance and he turns back to me and he says, the city pays for the intersection. The councilman at large, by this time, they're off to a different thing. They already passed it. Councilman at large says, that's not right. He says, that's not what we want. He says, that's what the ordinance says that you just passed. By this time, the other councilman heard it and they started to discuss it. No, this is not what we wanted. I mean, it won't take very long.
We got 4 minutes and we're done.
Okay. He said that the thing was wrong, that wasn't what they wanted, and they voted to rescind it. Mr. Poland turned back around to me and he said, you just saved the city $5,000. I asked him who prepared the ordinance. He said, one of the guys that I think he'd been either a judge or a mayor over there at one time, had prepared the document. It wasn't prepared by the city engineer. It wasn't prepared by the law director. It was patrolled.
Can I ask how this relates to a ditch petition?
Beg pardon? It's a case of where I'm talking about politics and assessments.
What does what you just said? And
I'm saying that if the public doesn't come in and make their point made, that politics will run amok.
So just so you're clear, I need to understand that because again, I've been trying to understand your points, and there are just certain points we aren't going to agree with whether this project goes forward or not.
I am
the city of Shelby representing 9,000 people and 63 private landowners. Now you just spoke for 10 minutes on politics. I don't understand. Okay.
You got 2 minutes.
The city of Shelby representing 9,000 people, 9,000, a little more, give or take. Now, yeah, it's about 990, whatever. 9,000 people who are all elected officials in that capacity, the council and the mayor, and 63 private landowners
outside the city,
but are in the watershed, filed a petition in this office saying this is a project we would like done. Okay. Let's be clear. That isn't politics.
Yeah, it is.
Those are people representing.
He's got a church that's right on the bank of the Black Fork that used to be in the floodplain and is no longer in the floodplain. That's politics.
It's no longer in the floodplain. I guess we made progress somewhere.
Well, I don't know how these things keep changing. The laws keep changing. That originally, if you tore down a house that was subsidized by the federal government, you couldn't build on that. He built a new building down there because he said, well, it's no longer in the floodplain.
With this process we are discussing.
If you're upset with the mayor, I suggest you go.
No, I'm upset with the fact that he put the outside of his community in the position of having to pay for his.
It wasn't just him, it was 63 landowners. I will gladly print for you the petition. We've talked about this and again, we have been open. You're at a public meeting. We had a public hearing. We're having another public hearing. Apparently $9, and I'm not minimizing it, if work is ever done, is the straw that breaks the camel's back. I will print for you the petition right now in my office and hand it to you.
I would like to have that.
You can see.
I would like to say one other thing here in closing, but you're going to shut me off here in a second. That I'm 84 years old. I'll be 85 in March. I'm not going to be around here to pay for this thing the rest of my life. I will be for the rest of my life, but not for the rest of the life of the petition. It goes on forever. And I'm opposed to things that go on forever. I think the public should have an input occasionally as to what it is. It should have a time limit. This is for 2 years. This is for 5
Procedure for petitions to be vacated, so that's also not true.
Pardon?
You can vacate.
You can vacate a ditch petition. So what you just said is also not true.
So you find out how to organize that, and I don't know
I'm
if it says
going
it.
to go through that at my age. I'm just trying to convince you that there are other opinions out here.
That's why we have public hearings.
That's why we have public hearings.
You know it, and that's why I'm talking. I think I appreciate your listening to me. There again, we agree to disagree.
You are a taxpayer in this community. You can come before us anytime you want.
Well, I appreciate that.
I enjoy it because we had a good conversation after the, you yelled at me after the hearing. I like a good debate. So,
Tony needs to be yelled at. once in a
Right.
while, just-
and again, I enjoy this banter very much. And I enjoyed when you yelled at me after.
Thanks for coming in, sir. I see you're
Yes.
a
John's
young lady here.
house. Let's go.
Oh, okay.
Wait. I got to get him his,
Wait, we got.
I wanna get him his-
Gotta give you a copy for him.
Okay.
And 11:11, we will stand in
hold
adjourn.
on.